Welcome back into the Thomas Fitch Sports Show. I am your host, Thomas Fitch. Texas men's basketball looks to be safely in the tournament. Finally this season, we can take a breath out, sigh of relief. Women's basketball suffers a heartbreaking loss to Baylor in the Big 12 tournament. We'll have Daniel Shih on the show a little bit later to talk about that, to talk about Texas's chance at a national championship. And we're going to do some professional questions, the new segment that we debuted last week. So let's get started. All right, so men's basketball, we're going to do that first. I really want to insert a laugh track just for everybody who thought that Shaka should be fired. Because that is still the dumbest thing that I have ever heard. And as the season has developed, it's like everybody's just proving me more and more right that Shaka shouldn't have been fired. Very glad about that. For the last 6 games, crucial games were wins, and most of those played without Bamba and Davis. The biggest wins were the back-to-back conference. He hadn't had back-to-back conference wins this whole season, but Chalk on the team finally gets some when they need to. They beat West Virginia on Saturday, 87-79, and then they beat Iowa State yesterday night by 4 points in the tournament. A very desperate Iowa State team trying to do whatever they can to make the tournament, knowing that they have to win it all. And all those games, like we've been saying, like I said last week, without Bamba, without Davis, and without Jones. And kind of like the Oklahoma State game, except this time Roach wasn't puking, but he was playing with half a tooth that got glued back on. And I don't care that it was glued back on. That still has to be lingering in your mind that your tooth is literally, half of your tooth is only in your mouth because of glue. That's incredible. But let's just do this for once and for all. Let's end this fire Shaka talk. Let's say nope, no more of it, because there is no need for it. It is stupid, and there's no reason behind it. And at this point, Texas is greater than a 99% chance in the tournament with 19 wins. So let's move on to some tournament talk, because we get to do that because we have a coach who can take us to the tournament with. Let me remind you, the roster that's playing right now, it's essentially the roster that won 11 wins last year. Maybe you add Ozakowski, you add Coleman and Sims, but you lose some of the guys you lost last year, plus you're without Davis and Jones. So basically the same team that won 11 games last year just won 4 out of their last 6 and is playing in the NCAA tournament. So now Shaka talk, or fire Shaka talk, is over. Talking about tournament, very good chance we make it. At this point, what the team is playing for is seeding. Right now, I think if the tournament was to start today, Texas is last 4 in, probably playing in one of the playing games in Dayton as a as a 12 seed. Not exactly where Texas wants to be. And the reason why I say that that's not where Texas wants to be, not only do you have to win to make it in the tournament, but as I've said this whole season, Texas plays up and down to their opponents. It's the same way. Texas beat West Virginia more than they beat Iowa State. Granted, very different nights, as we're going to talk about in a second. However, it's still true. And so, in a way, I would rather be an 11 seed having to play a 7 seed or a 12 seed having to play a 5 seed than an 8 seed having to play a 9 seed. But anyways, if Texas loses to Tech, I think it's 12 seed, most likely a playing game. If they were to beat them, then you're starting to look at maybe 10, 11 seed if they were to lose in the next round. However, if they win the whole thing, if they win the Big 12 tournament, meaning they've beaten Tech, they've beaten probably a Kansas State, maybe a TCU or a Baylor or a Kansas State, still, a quadrant 1 or a quadrant 2 win, multiple of those to win the championship, I think they can work their way up to at the most a 7, at the worst an 8 or a 9 seed. And the hard thing, the question that I've always had and I've never really been able to understand is how much does the committee actually pay attention to to conference tournaments. Because you look, a team like Kansas, they very rarely win the Big 12 tournament. They'll win the Big 12 regular season, but for them, why try? Why get injured in the Big 12 tournament when you know you're going to be a top seed in the NCAA tournament? And so that's why a lot of these games, and you're playing against teams that are desperate and know they need a win. And so I think that kind of devalues a win and a loss. And so that's why I think even winning the tournament, a 7 seed is still a stretch for this Texas team. I think more than likely Texas is a 8 or 9 seed if they were to win. But I still don't, even though this team is kind of on a win streak, 4 of the last 6 games are wins, I don't think they have the consistency or just this team is going to be exhausted by the end of the tournament, especially if Bamba's not coming back, if Davis still hasn't been cleared. This team is just going to be exhausted. And that's fine. I think they need all the rest they can get heading into the tournament. So we'll see, but hopefully they could beat Tech and at least get out of the playing game, because that's not a place you want to be. Let's go back to a little game recap. We'll start with the West Virginia game on Saturday. Kind of a tale of 2 games, West Virginia and Iowa State. Texas wins 87-79 in overtime. So it was close, obviously, in regulation, and that was just a game that I kind of had the feeling that Texas, like I was ready to tweet NIT, because it just felt like Texas was just going to blow it down the stretch and either lose, heartbreakingly at the end of regulation, or lose in overtime. But they came out strong in overtime, got out to a big one. Jacob Young hit some clutch shots there. But the impressive thing, and you'll see when we go to the Iowa State game why it was the exact opposite. The team shot better from the 3-point line than from the field. Shot 58% from threes and 57% for overall field goals. That's some incredible statistics. Like that is some Golden State. I mean that's almost that kind of looks bad on how you're shooting regularly, because it's like, okay, you can't actually score inside the 3-point line, but you can score out. But anyways, that worked, and so that was huge, and that was a big reason that they were in the game. However, the defense was lacking, and that was why when you're shooting 58% from the 3-point line and you're still going to overtime against a defensive team, it's because you can't play defense. Now, heading to the Iowa State game, the exact opposite. Texas shoots 40% from the field, 26% from the 3-point line. However, they play good defense. They force 17 turnovers. That's how they win that one. But I'll tell you what, both games, I was just ready for Texas to rip my heart out, because both really had the feel of tournament games. With the West Virginia game, there was still the hope that you could lose that, and you still had the Big 12 tournament that if you won, you were in. With the Iowa State game, it was you lose, you're out. And just an incredible job by that team, especially in the second half. Texas started off good, but Roach is struggling with half a tooth hanging out. Coleman gets into foul trouble early, and Coleman, that's one thing, and I mentioned this in the past. Coleman needs to work on foul trouble. He's a point guard. Point guards should not get into foul trouble. If you're getting into foul trouble as a point guard, that's just poor defense. And that's one thing he's going to really have to work on for the tournament, because this team, the second they lose Matt Coleman, it's just downhill. And so Shaka's got to coach him and say, hey, man, you got to learn to not foul. And it's not even like some of them are shots, but some of them it's like a guy's driving in and he just gets a little bump foul. And so hopefully come tournament time, he can really improve that. So now we wait. Tech versus Texas. That's tonight. If we were to win that, I believe we play. I'm actually not sure. Either Friday or Saturday. But a little segue or a little preview of next week. I will be in Florida, and I will be doing a little bracket special from the beach. Really excited for that. Hopefully Texas is. We're saying, oh, look at that, Texas 7 seed against 11. Northwestern Idaho State, whoever. But more than likely it'll be as a 12 seed. But that'll be fun. make sure to tune in for that. That'll probably be dropping Wednesday night or Thursday morning of next week. When we come back, Daniel Shih is going to join us, and then after that, we're going to have some segments. So we'll be right back. Welcome back into the Thomas Fitch Sports Show. We have guest Daniel Shih, our women's basketball analyst, joining us. Daniel, really glad for you to be on the show.
Well, nice to have me. I mean, I didn't know this thing existed 2 weeks ago. I checked YouTube. I was like, this is cool.
You're like, I got to get on that.
Yeah, when am I gonna get on?
Well, you're on now. Let's start off in the Big 12 championship game. Texas makes it there, but Baylor wins 77-69, their third straight win against Texas this season. However, it looks like a blowout on paper, but this game was tied 64-64 with 2.5 minutes left. So, it's another close game down to the wire, but Baylor just ran away with it. And in a game, this game was set up perfectly for Texas to win with Baylor's one of the best players, Christy Wallace, being out with an ACL injury. So, with really, in the perfect scenario for Texas to win, them not being able to do that, what does it take for Texas? If it's not an injury, what does it take for Texas to beat Baylor?
Well, the easiest answer would be to not let Karen Aston get a technical foul with about 1:30 left.
that hurt.
But I mean, you were tied with 4 minutes left. I thought
2 minutes left.
I thought it was like 1:15 or 1:30, and then Baylor got a few shots and then Texas didn't execute well. That's a lot of them just bad luck, to be honest. A lot of them just I think Texas, because they barely played teams that are better, if not as close as them in the Big 12, so they don't really know how to handle those high pressure moments. Baylor just executed better. As I mentioned,
they got all the roles.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, can we beat them? Can Texas beat them? I think so. Especially with Christy Wallace out.
Yeah.
But will we beat them? Will Texas beat them after Brooke McCarty and Ariel Atkins not here anymore?
Yeah.
That's for another day.
Yeah, that'll be tough. I mean, is this just a matchup concern? Because Texas has looked well against teams like UConn, the best team in the league, who won their conference championship game. They held Cincinnati to like 21 points, and Texas really should have beat them. So is this just a matchup problem with Baylor?
I think mentally wise, Texas just can't. Like what you mentioned, the UConn game, I didn't think Texas was of course they wanted to win, but I didn't think they expected to win or they had the pressure to win that game.
Yeah, so the pressure being put on them.
Yeah, I think that game was just, hey, let's see how good we are. Rather, when you play against Baylor, especially the last two games were like the must-win games, Texas really inexperienced to face that situation.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the good news about the loss, not much good news because you never want to lose, but really didn't affect Texas. I think no matter what, going into that game, they were going to be a 2 seed no matter what. So, looking forward to the tournament, I think Texas will, and I think you'll agree, they'll do fine early on. The question is, how can they fare when they face, say a 1 seed or a 3 seed in, the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. But of the 1 seeds, it's likely going to be probably UConn, Baylor, Mississippi State, and probably Louisville. Of those 4, who would Texas rather face or be in the same bracket as?
I'm not the committee, so I can't choose which. But if I could choose, I actually would choose Baylor again.
You think so?
First of all, you don't want to see UConn before.
You never want to see
UConn before the Final Four.
Yeah. I don't think we're in that close of a game with them the second time around.
Yeah.
Gino's too good.
The UConn game?
Because we lost by 1 point.
Right.
Gino's good enough that if we face them again, he's going to fix all those little problems.
Yeah. Also, we were at home and we didn't have any pressure.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you don't want to see UConn.
Mm-mm.
Baylor, I picked Baylor for 2 reasons. Number 1, Christy Wallace is out.
Yeah, that's true.
So, that's a big plus.
And there's a chance that Karan Gaudreau could be back, maybe by that point.
Maybe, but with Christy Wallace out, Texas was so close against Baylor. If you see Baylor in the Elite 8, do you play neutral court or do you?
Yes, I believe after the
second round, right?
Yeah, after the first and second rounds, after the first weekend, it becomes neutral sites.
Yeah, so, I mean, we've seen Baylor on a neutral site already.
Yeah.
It's going to be repetitive, kind of, except this time will be for the national championship. But we've seen them already, and Karen Aston said it when Baylor visited Texas. She said, when you play Baylor, you pick your poison. Okay, number one, Christy Wallace is out, so one of the poisons is poisonous. Second of all,
there's still a lot of poisonous things still on that team.
But second of all, when you drink too much poison, your body creates some sort of immune system against the poison.
Good reference. That's good.
So Texas, seeing Baylor 3 times already.
You think we're immune now?
We're not immune, but
we're working towards
it. We're better equipped.
Okay.
Against versus a Baylor, versus UConn, which you basically never faced, and then you still lost by 2 at home against you have the best perfect situation going to UConn. You still lost, even though we lost. Texas only lost by 2. So Baylor really good. I would choose Baylor just because. I mean, Baylor might just be complacent when they play Texas, just because how
could
they play.
be.
But I like the Mississippi matchup too.
Okay, you like Mississippi State as well.
I saw the schedule just now. Maybe it's probably because their website don't work. But apparently they did not play a ranked team this season, which I really doubt. But if they really
they lost to South Carolina, who's ranked in the conference championship.
Right, but if they really face that little amount of ranked teams, they're the same playing field as Texas, where Texas didn't face a lot of good teams either. So and they 2 out of the 3 players that scored the most points for them are guards, and if you want to go guards versus guards against Texas, it's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah.
I would give Mississippi a heads up. Lead advantage over Texas, where their center has like 50 or 60 blocks this whole season. Texas front court is not good enough.
It's pretty weak, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so 2 hot takes. A, Mississippi State, fix your website. B, Texas has been getting our Baylor shot all year, and it hurt a little bit at first, didn't it?
Yeah.
That shot hurt the first game.
Yeah.
But now we're working our way up. So immunize your kids, and maybe they'll beat Baylor.
Right. I don't. Hey, Baylor. Watch out, Baylor.
Now, those Baptists haven't been giving their kids vaccines. Who knows? Man, I'm gonna take some heat from this. What is this team's ceiling and floor? Kind of best case scenario, best possible outcome / worst outcome for this team in the tournament.
Depends on how high the building is. If it depends on the ceiling.
No.
But just kidding. But ceiling. Well, if you're ranked 6th, I guess the ceiling has to be the national championship.
Yeah, at least the Final Four, right?
The ceiling, the Final Four.
But
if you're going for a realistic expectation, I guess Elite 8.
Okay. Well, as we know, Michael Jordan said, the ceiling is the floor.
Yeah, exactly. So, Final Four, Karen, if you're listening, Final Four. I'm expecting Final Four appearance.
Okay. Where's the earliest you could see Texas losing?
Sweet 16.
Wow, yeah.
I can't see them going on in the first or second round.
Yeah, because for second round, if you win, you're facing a 7 or 11 seed. Sweet 16 is where you start facing a team that's probably a top 25, unless there's an upset. But that happens very rarely in the women's tournament.
And if you're talking about if you choose the best 5 conferences and you assume that the top teams in those conferences are going to make the NCAA tournament. If you're going to Sweet 16, that means you're playing the top 4 teams, which Texas will handle. The top, I guess, the 3rd or 4th place. 3rd and 4th best teams in each of those conferences. Yeah. I think Texas can handle that.
Yeah.
But when you're coming down to the 2nd or the 1st place, when you be best teams in the conferences, which you will face in the Elite 8, that's where Texas struggles.
Yeah.
Because again, Baylor lost by 3, UConn, Tennessee.
Yeah.
That's where Texas struggles. So
yeah, but they have some early ones. I believe they beat Florida State early on, and they're a top 10 team, and so they have some good wins. But their losses are good, but it's also they don't have many quality wins. They just have quality losses.
Right.
Let's look towards the future. You said this question's for another time, but we're going to bring it up right now. How long does it take Texas to recover from losing McCarty and Atkins and Karan Gaudreau as well? Adrienne Karan Gaudreau.
Well, in the front court, you still have for next year, I'm just looking at next year.
Yeah.
You have Jatari White, Joyner Holmes still staying.
Mhm.
So front court will be the same.
Right.
You probably putting Kellyanne Karangadro, the sister of Adrian.
Right.
She's registered as a guard, but I think her height and her strength can play front court.
Yeah.
so
we need front court players, and so I
Right.
think she gets a lot of time next year.
So in that case, Booth played.
Yeah.
These
She's getting
couple of
some more
games.
minutes. She's still a little awkward, but she's one of the top players recruiting last year, and we've seen her, in the media availability.
Yeah.
She's just working on her shot. If she can kind of get some more confidence in there, I think she could be a good player long term.
Especially like now, I saw most of her struggle being on the offensive side, where she kind of tried to make try to shoot too many threes.
Yeah.
But on the defensive side, she was kind of neutralizing the Baylor front court, which was surprising for me. They just, after Booth came on, they just went to the player that has Jatari White on her.
Right.
Jatari White's a bit short. Comparing to Baylor's front court,
Especially Kalani Brown.
Yeah. So Booth is playing. I think she has a lot of promise potential.
Yeah.
She's already pretty good on defensive side. So
Yeah. Well, and Texas brings up. I just pulled up the recruiting. Charlie Collier, she's the second overall ranked player. She's a forward. She's 6'5".
Mm-hmm.
So there's some of the size that you need. The other player, Sedona Prince, wow, she's 6'7". Right. So, and then that's Collier is number 2, and Prince is 12. So Texas, two of the top 15 players of the nation, the number 2 overall player of the nation, both over 6'5". That's a good way to kind of reinforce the front court depth.
Right.
But how do you recover from McCarty? I think we can replace the wings. We have Sutton, we have Higgs to replace on the wings, but who do you have to replace McCarty?
Well,
is she replaceable?
So because Ariel Atkins and Brooke McCarty and Higgs and Sutton are playing quite well, the reserves, I guess you can call the younger players and guards, they didn't really get that many minutes.
Right.
When they play though, when the first couple of games I watched against Iowa State, TCU, they were all scoring the fourth quarter by the second team of the other team.
Right.
So that's a point of concern.
Mm-hmm.
But if for next year, I think Sun, because whenever Sun is on the court, she's running the point.
Okay, so she'll take the one next year.
She'll take the one,
and I'm fairly confident in her taking over.
Yeah, and Higgs is gonna take the 3 or the 2, which I'm fine with. But again, LaShawn is a junior already.
Yeah.
So after next year, she's
Yeah.
leaving. But other than that, I can't come up with a name because the Karen plays Aston plays McCarty and Atkins so much.
Yeah. You don't get to see the backups.
Yeah,
unless it's a blowout. So.
Right.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're saying they're gonna do all right. They have a lot of talent, but it may be a year or two to kind of fully recover and get back.
I think that's for the most cases when it comes to college sports where you're because you only get the seniors for 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
You're playing them so much I don't see the backups or the freshmen
Yeah.
sophomore. Except rare exception would be Sutton. But
that's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully this could be a national championship contending team. We'll talk more about that in the future. As the women's tournament starts. But let's move on to a little baseball because that's kicking off soon.
Right.
You know a lot more baseball than I do.
You know a lot more golf.
I do. No golf on this show this week, but hopefully next week we can get some more. So talking baseball, who are your early favorites to win it all? Who's holding the trophy at the end of the season?
A lot of times I go with the runner-up of the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
Last year didn't really make sense because Cleveland was the early favorite,
right?
But they fell short, and because of their budget and their market. They're not really a rich team, so they're kind of the key pieces are leaving already.
Yeah.
I see the Dodgers.
Wow,
I think
they finally can make a solid postseason run. You think?
I mean that they already had last year.
Yeah, they certainly have the stars to do it.
I mean they're mostly the team is intact. You still have Kershaw, you still have Maeda, you still have Yasiel Puig. So I see the Dodgers at least going into the NLCS.
Okay.
They might choke just because they're the Dodgers. It's in their genes.
It is.
But at least going to NLCS. But because it's so early and so much uncertainty. In this, especially this season with the unsigned free agents, it's really hard to predict. And I'm not trying to cop out or something. But I see the Dodgers. I think they're the very good favorites.
Yeah.
Also, I could go with. I really hate saying this. Maybe Boston.
Oh
just maybe
no!
Boston. 'Cause
I know that you're a Yankees fan, so I know that hurts you to say.
But they got JD Martinez. They still have Chris Sale and David Price in that rotation. David Price got hurt last year, so and then they still got into the ALDS. Right. Put up a good, just got punched in the face by Houston because they're the Red Sox.
Right.
But I won't be surprised if it's a Dodgers Red Sox matchup.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I am really excited to. I feel like it's been a while since both the Yankees and Red Sox have been really good at the same time.
Right.
I'm excited to see that rivalry really rekindled and hopefully get some good matchups. How far, you're a Yankees fan, you think, I would assume you think they make the playoffs.
I mean, you have to improve from last year.
Yeah.
Right? Your only key piece you're missing is Starlin Castro.
Mm-hmm.
That will be a huge piece. Also Todd Frazier. So I mean, at least the first wild card. Even if they get the second wild card, I think it's a pretty. Oh, you can't say disappointment because you still have a chance.
Right.
But I mean, I wouldn't be happy if it's just a second wild card. But I see them, the Yankees. It depends on how Aaron Judge handles sophomore slump because he will get it. He will get it. I can guarantee you right now he will get a sophomore slump.
Okay.
But it depends on the matchup in the first round. We got lucky last year facing the Indians. Tanaka is still unstable. First round probably.
First round. All right. Well, you're a Yankees fan. I'm unfortunately a Braves fan. We haven't had a lot of success in a while, but we've kind of gutted the team. A bunch of young guys. You think my Braves have any chance of the playoffs?
Okay, so I actually read an analysis of NL East just now.
Yeah.
Just to answer this question because I know you're a Braves fan.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the NL East. You have the Nationals, which will win.
Absolutely.
Because the other four teams are just not good enough. You have the Mets, who can challenge the Nationals.
Led by star Tim Tebow.
Tim apparently he will play, according to the owner. So not a good sign of team management right there.
If Tim Tebow's starting, that's a bad sign for who else you have on your starting roster.
But the Mets, you still have Cespedes, which is really good. You added Todd Frazier, which is a solid big lead piece. If Syndergaard and DeGrom and Mike Harvey, they
can stay healthy.
If they can stay healthy, they're a threat to the Nationals.
Yep.
But I just don't see them beating Nationals.
Okay.
Speaking of the Nationals, I think they will be eliminated in the first round again, just because they're gonna get a better seed than at least they might get the first or second seed in the NL.
Right.
But because you play such poor teams, you get the seed. That doesn't mean you're better.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you're facing like a Cubs who has to go through Cardinals, Pirates, Brewers who are really good, you're not gonna beat the Cubs.
Okay.
That's just the Nationals.
Yeah.
So pick up your slack, Bryce Harper. You need to win. But okay, so the Mets are gonna challenge, but I see them going second. Maybe the Phillies are coming out of their rebuild.
Yeah, it's been a long rebuild for them.
It's a solid rebuild.
You think so?
I think it's a solid rebuild. This year will be like the Yankees from last year, where you have promise, but you just don't know where. A lot of young talent. Yeah, you just don't know where you're going.
Okay.
But you added Carlos Santana, which is a very good piece.
Yeah.
So I see. You have for the Braves to go through the Mets and the Phillies. I see a chance just because Phillies might because they're young. A lot of them will be a sophomore next year, so sophomore slump, etc. The Mets, if half a team gets injured again, the Braves have a chance.
Okay.
Miami, Derek Jeter, getting 120 losses next year. Just saying. If the Braves don't get a better record than Miami, I have no idea what you're doing.
I certainly hope they do. They either really do or they really don't.
Right.
And we're
yeah.
going to see in the next couple of years. But that will be exciting to watch as you kind of have the Braves working their way up through Phillies. Because that was kind of a rivalry back in the day when the Nationals sucked.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see that kind of come back if those rebuilds, work. Last question. Who's your MVP picks so far? Or early, before it started?
Okay, so you got to go with Bryce Harper. Obvious picks, Bryce Harper, Mike Trout.
Right.
But Mike Trout might never wins or rarely wins because the Angels are so bad.
Yeah.
So you have Ohtani now.
Okay.
He's coming in. Is he going to bring 20 more wins to the Angels? I don't know. You still have Houston in your division. He's pitching quite well. I mean, okay, first of all, I think he has a chance of getting the MVP. Just because if he hits and pitches both really well.
Oh, that's right, because he does both.
Yeah, so if he does both really well, I can see him winning. That's my dark horse.
You think at any point in his career he could win the MVP and the Cy Young award?
No, not both. I don't think the writers will allow that to happen.
Yeah,
just because baseball. Happened? No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
he's like the first guy that can hit and pitch very well, but I mean he's hitting. He has one hit out of 9 at bats so far in spring training. Okay. Got fooled by Kershaw, but okay. To be fair, everybody gets fooled by Kershaw.
Yeah, exactly.
My major concern for Ohtani is the lack of success for Japanese hitters in the major league level.
Okay.
The only 2 players I can think of that has great success. One is Ichiro Suzuki.
Right.
We talked about him. Crossfire yesterday. Go watch that on YouTube. Second, is
TSTV Sports. Check it out.
Yeah, and second is Hideki Matsui.
Yeah.
And those are the 2 big names I can think of. You have a lot of hitters who came to America but just didn't produce just because the level, like maybe the culture, maybe the food, maybe the intensity of the workouts, maybe stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't think the pitching between Japan and the U.S. differs that much. Because you see like Tanaka, Yu Darvish pitching very well here.
Right.
But I think it's just the thinking because Japanese baseball is so different from the U.S. baseball.
Yeah.
So I think that hinders hitters a little bit.
Gotcha.
Ohtani was the 4th hitter though, so that might be different.
Yeah.
But he's too. I don't see him getting like 50, even 20 homers in the big leagues just because how skinny he is.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
All right.
Ohtani is my dark horse, but you had to go with Mike Trout and Bryce Harper. Yeah.
All right. Well, Daniel, it's been really fun having you on. Hopefully, we can get you on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know. This was so much fun.
You're like the Colin Cowherd of UT. Actually, that's what I wrote in the review just
now.
On iTunes.
Review. Hey, that's right. Get on iTunes. Leave 5-star review. If you leave a 5-star review and leave a question, then I'll answer it on the show. But yes, thank you for not just being on the show, but for the review and the praise, Colin Howard. Listen to him. Colin, if you want to hire me.
Just don't hate Westbrook that much. That's
me. Oh, you're saying he does. I was going to say, I'm Team Westbrook right here.
Yeah. Don't hate and don't love LeBron too much.
Oh, I hate LeBron.
Okay.
I hate LeBron. I love Westbrook.
Okay, maybe the anti-herd on the UT campus.
All right. Well, great having you. We'll be back with some segments after this. All right, so that was a fun interview with Daniel Shih. Hopefully, we can get him on the show later on as we continue to go on. Now we're going to get to a segment that was very popular last week. It's called Professional Takes, and basically how it works is I look at all the mainstream sports media at their talk shows, and I kind of pick out the topics that I think could be the best to talk about. I don't really research them. I just pick a take. Kind of seems like how the guys do it on their shows. Just going to pick a take and run with it. So let's get started. First take. Is this the best LeBron we've ever seen? He's coming off a night where LeBron put up 38 some points, and I don't think it was a triple-double, but impressive stat categories with rebounds and assists. And, I have to disagree. I think this is a problem of some of the sports media. We know ESPN loves LeBron. They pick a couple guys when they come out and they latch onto them. And anytime they do something good, here they are. They're the best. They're the best. And LeBron's good. And he's playing great for his age. He's not old. He's like 33, 34. But he's past his quote-unquote the quote unquote kind of prime. And the thing, what he was so good at, and what so many of the best players are good at, it's not just on the court scoring, it's getting a whole team around you. And this is a Cavs team that struggled all year, and there's been so much drama in there and in the whole locker room. So I think that if you're a good leader, that stuff doesn't happen. Spurs never had that kind of drama. As we're going to talk about, a lot of the quote-unquote drama that's been there really hasn't. But LeBron's playing good on the court. I don't think it's the best he's played. I think people like to forget the past. They forget all the years when he won like back-to-back, I don't know how many in a row, MVPs, when he was, completely unstoppable, winning, NBA championships with like nobody on the team. And I guess he never really did that. But still, LeBron, he's not at his best. Like, he's not. He's past his prime. His prime was a couple years ago. He's still playing great, but this is not the best LeBron we've ever seen. And to say that is naive. And yeah. Next question: how much longer will Kawhi be with the Spurs? This is another example of media just blowing stuff up, and I think this has happened especially recently with the NBA media, and I think because NBA has become so kind of tied with pop culture, there is so much of let's grab every piece of drama we can and just throw it out there and run with it. Because that's what pop culture does. It's Kardashians this, Kardashians that, Kardashian whatever, that crap. And that's what the NBA is turning into. It helps that half of them are dating the Kardashians. Thanks, OJ. But going back to Kawhi, I really want to say that story was blown out of proportion. And the reason why, there was a lack of communication between the Spurs. But when there's a lack of communication, Kawhi hadn't said anything. There are so many different possibilities that you can take there. And obviously the media ran with the best story of, Kawhi is out, he's never going to play again for the Spurs. And I get why you could kind of run with that. It's the best story. It looks the best. But the man hadn't said a word. He was up. I don't even remember where he was, hiding or whatever, recovering. And it's a weird injury because he has been cleared. But let the man speak. Let the story unfold. And then go and cover it. And the story has unfolded. And Kawhi says, he finally speaks out and says, I want to be a Spur for a while. So my answer to the question, he'll be with the Spurs for a while. Plain and simple. I think hopefully he can return this year. And this is the weird world of sports injuries. The problem, and I've heard a lot of people say this, the problem with sports injuries is when you put a deadline on it, say it's a sprained ankle. Okay, he's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks. Well, it's not something like, we're not that advanced of a society to where we can say, okay, this ankle, T minus 14 days and 3 hours, and then you're good to go. Every injury is different. You don't sprain your ankle the same way. You don't break your arm the same way. You don't tear your rotator cuff the same way as everyone else. Not only that, everybody has different bodies. Everybody recovers in different ways. Everybody's with different doctors. And so we start putting limits on guys, and when they're not coming back, we're like, or is there something super wrong? And now with Kawhi, to an extent, there is something kind of super wrong with that, with the fact that he's kind of been cleared, but there's still pain. And I get why you don't want to play through the pain, especially if it's a weird pain, and it's probably something psychological or nerve damage, or I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm a journalist. I just report on stuff. But clearly something's bothering him, and hopefully he can come back. But nobody, you never know. Who knows what at this point, doctors don't really know what it is because he's been cleared. But people have to stop jumping to speculations and saying that he just doesn't want to play for the Spurs. Because I promise you, he would die to get out and play in any uniform this season. Just because I promise you, all these guys, they just want to play basketball. He doesn't want to be sidelined. And I think that's a false narrative that that he's just kind of sitting out. I promise you, he wants to play. So I think, going back to the question, how much longer, I think if he sticks around past this free agency, I think he's there for life. The way the Spurs program you when you first get in there, that chip that they put in your head, takes about 5 to 7 years to really set in. But if you're there for 5 to 7 years and you keep that chip in the back of your head, it just it programs you and you're going to stay there. Very rarely do you have guys who have been with the Spurs for more than 5 to 7 years get out. And if they do, it's a respect if they take the chip out, unless it's like forceful and then you have all sorts of problems when you leave. But it's a joke. They don't actually program that. Maybe. But yeah, I think Kawhi stays maybe for the rest of his career if he stays past his free agency, which I think he does. A lot of NBA talk today. Can the Raptors knock off the Cavs / win the East? First of all, I don't like this. They're kind of a lot of narratives. I'm going to get into 2 narratives that I don't like. First of all, saying can they knock off the Cavs? I added win the East. Cavs aren't the best team in the the second best team in the East. Other narrative is that the Celtics are the best team in the East, and it's Celtics-Cavs. And when the Celtics played the Warriors, everybody was saying, or the Celtics played the Rockets, people were saying, is this a finals preview? And I'm sitting here like, the Raptors have the best. The Raptors were the first team to clinch the playoff spot. They have the best record. So why are you all of a sudden crowning the Celtics? And going back to this, why are you now crowning the Cavs? Is it just because they have LeBron? Like I get that the Cavs are one of the better teams in the East, but how about why don't you just say, can the Raptors win the East? There's a lot of basketball left. We don't even know who the second seed is. And so to just go out there and put the Cavs in that situation, I think that's just this media bias towards the Cavs, towards LeBron James, and the other media bias towards the Celtics the Celtics, because the Celtics started off really good, they're going to win it all. People forget about the Raptors. So do I think that the Raptors can knock off the Cavs? Yes. Do I think the Raptors can win the East? Yes. I think they can. I do like the Celtics. I think is my favorite to win the East. But they're well, I feel like both teams are kind of inexperienced when it comes to the playoffs. But the Celtics had a run early on in the season. If they can kind of get back to what they did at the beginning of the season, then I think the Celtics win the East. But if they can't get back to their really hot streak, the ways when they were winning good, they were playing excellent defense, they still are, but just dominating teams, then I think the Raptors have their best chance in a really long time to finally take the East. Let's get some NCAA basketball up in here. Does OU make the NCAA tournament? Absolutely. Let's go back to media narratives. Guess who the media loves? Trae Young. They heralded him as the next Steph Curry, the next great NBA player. And granted, he's good, and he's still putting up points when he struggled. But I think people herald college players way too soon. Because, especially like a freshman, it's one thing when a guy's kind of played for 4 years and he's developed. But a freshman who especially wasn't, he was a 4-star, but the 5-star guys, I think usually when they come out as a 5-star, you see very few of the top 5, top 10 recruits who don't succeed, at least early on in the NBA. But the 4-stars who kind of blow up, you never know what's gonna happen to them. And Young got touted early, but that's fortunate for Oklahoma. It's been kind of unfortunate that they got overhyped and that he got overhyped. But I think that's going to carry them right into the tournament because the committee wants to see Trae Young in the tournament because Trae Young will drive ratings because everybody wants to see the next Steph Curry. So I think OU makes it in. I think they may probably get even like a better seed than they really deserve, but I think probably a 10 seed for them. And the thing about them, Trae Young hasn't been hot in like a month. If he gets hot, this is a team that could be a Cinderella. But it's scary because he's not hot right now, and so it's just one of those. And we're going to go through all the brackets next week once they've been released. But it's so hard to pick a team that could get hot, but aren't yet. And so I think they make it, they make it, and they either go on a run or they lose in the first round. Final question: where does Kirk Cousins end up Kirk, who was unsurprising. I feel like I'm harping on the media too much because I shouldn't. That's my future employers. But I feel like everybody was making too big of a deal that like the Redskins didn't franchise tag Kirk Cousins, or the Redskins won't resign. The Redskins are going to let him be a free agent. Of course they are. Why in the world would you pay $30 million for a guy just to trade him? You know, this is a team that possibly that now has a lot of cap space because they didn't do that, but they would have blown all their cap space. And a lot of people will be like, okay, to be fair, this was never a big possibility, but I still think it was blown out of proportion. Like, why even? Well, I know there had been some talks, but I think that's blown out of proportion. Anyways, the question was, where does he end up? And the three leading teams are the Vikings, the Broncos, and the Cardinals. All three, I think, would be good fits for him because when you look at a guy like Kirk is not elite enough to do a kind of Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady and win without a ton of good assets around him. You know, I think that's one way where Rodgers may be better than Brady. Brady may be better at winning, but he's also had better teams around him. Rodgers will have years where literally they're playing with like third stringers and like some walk-ons, you know, from down the street, you know, in Nantucket, Wisconsin, you know, and Rodgers leads them to the playoffs. Kirk's never going to do that. And that's evident with the Redskins because this year was the best year of any year for the Redskins to make the playoffs with Kirk Cousins. And I know they did a couple years ago, but this was the best team that Kirk's really had around him. Even as much as Dan Snyder probably tried to make him lose because Snyder hates Cousins and just a terrible owner. But they had a good offensive line. They had some good young receivers, good running back, which helps when you have a good offensive line, and a really solid, a really complete defense. One of the first, you know, all-around solid defenses that the Redskins have had in years. And early on, all the players started dropping like flies. And once that happened, the season was over. And it's a shame because this was a team that really could have contended. I don't know if I would have said Super Bowl contender, but definitely a contender to maybe make it to the NFC Championship. But that's what it takes for Kirk to win. It takes having a complete offense and a complete defense. But he can take you to a championship game with that if you build that around him. And so that's why the Vikings, the Broncos, and the Cardinals, all good defenses and all have offensive weapons. I think if you look at the most complete team, it's the Vikings. I think Vikings have the better defense and the better offense. But Denver has a lot of offensive weapons. They also have a very solid defense. And I think they have good coaching there. And Arizona, obviously, very good defense too. And a lot of I feel like Arizona has the players who are good but are not recognized as much, whereas Denver has the players that are recognized a little too much and aren't as good, like Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, who were good about 2-3 years ago and are kind of on the necessarily decline, but it's also they've been hurt by not, you know, they kind of went down once they lost Peyton Manning as the quarterback. But it's looking like the Vikings are the favorites. And at first when I saw the Vikings, I'm like, why? They have so many quarterbacks. But what would happen? Keenum's a free agent, and I didn't realize that. So if the Vikings win the Cousins sweepstakes, they sign Cousins, and they drop Keenum. Very easy. It's a shame for Teddy Bridgewater, but you know, I don't know what that's been kind of the fascinating thing is I remember last year Bridgewater was looking good, and then he gets injured, and then this season all of a sudden Keenum steps up and was somehow really good, and I don't think it's going to last. So if he gets dropped, and some team's going to overpay for Case Keenum. A team's going to overpay for Cousins as well. Cousins is going to get a ton of money, probably more than he deserves. But he's a better quarterback than a guy like maybe Nick Foles or Case Keenum, who are going to get money, who just kind of had hot streaks. Cousins is not a hot streaks guy. He's more of a very consistent. He's going to give you consistent wins, and if you build a team around him, he can be a good quarterback. Not an elite quarterback, but he can be a good quarterback who can take you to the playoffs as long as you build around him. Anyways, that is all for the show. We will see you next week in Florida, breaking down the bracket. March Madness is just around the corner. That is so exciting. I hope y'all are as excited about me for March Madness and for that episode. Anyways, thanks for joining me today from the Thomas Fitch Sports Show. I'm Thomas Fitch. Hook 'em horns. Let go of everything.